the world in Wood Buffalo on Shaw TV. Today we're going to talk about racism and discrimination and how do we deal with it. So March 21st was the UN Day for the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, and that's why we're actually doing this show. In Fort McMurray, we had a wonderful competition across different school districts called Tackled Racism Inter-School Competition, and you might even see the entries are displayed out here. What we're going to talk about today is related to two of our panelists, Dai Rai, she's from Zimbabwe, and Mildred, she's from the Philippines. So both of them have been here for a while, and they'll be able to give you some description about their life here and how they experienced racism and discrimination, or they did not experience racism and discrimination in Fort McMurray. So Dai Rai, would you like to say how many years you lived here in Fort McMurray and how did you find it?
Okay, so I came to Fort McMurray in October of 2012. So I've been here for close to maybe three years. I'm not exactly sure when it comes to experience-wise, just how to maybe describe it. So if I was talking more in terms of personal experience, I would like to say that when it comes to racism, it has its many forms. It's not something that's blatantly out there. So the only one incident that I ever had that was a little bit shocking or that was a little bit concerning was in the superstore, where there were two ladies that basically accosted me, and part of the process was it involved them basically telling me to go back to my country, and a few other choice words were used. So instead of me engaging with them on that level, I decided to alert the store of what was going on, and I am glad to say that the store responded fabulously. I had absolutely, up till today, I do not have any complaints about the superstore and the management and what they went out, how they responded to the issue that happened. If I were to talk in terms of professionally, I've had quite a few people that I have met, that I've spoken to in my professional capacity, that have experienced racism in different ways, be it at work, be it out on the streets, be it just in the everyday interactions. And one of the main themes that is there that I have noticed is it seems to be there really isn't that connected feeling of this is something that is affecting a whole lot of people. There isn't the dialogue that is ongoing. And I moved to Fort McMurray from Ontario. So for me, Ontario had a lot of training. If you joined a new job or went into a new organization, you would go training, sensitivity, diversity, just to kind of let you know about inclusion and the fact that, we were different people living under the same country, living in the same country, see? But the way I look at it is that when it comes to Fort McMurray, that conversation, as much as we're trying to start it, it's missing. It's not there. If it's there, it's probably more in terms of me in my own corner and my circle of people and supports. We talk about it in our own experiences, and other people in their own communities as well speak about it in their own communities and kind of deal with it and manage with it as best as they can. But I think there's a need to come together and open the dialogue a little bit more.
Mildred, would you like to add about your experiences? How did you find living in Fort McMurray? How many years have you been here?
I'm here almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me too, racism or discrimination is also common in anywhere we were going. So for me, I discriminate also myself based on my experience, because I came here even though I finished some degrees in the Philippines, but I came here for nothing. So even though I finished some degrees, I am back to zero here. So seem like I am nothing to do. So I just only staying on my room, alone because I don't have any friend yet. Well, I have my group, the Cordillera Society of Fort McMurray, but they are also busy doing their stuff. They're also doing their jobs. So seem like I feel alone, really, really alone.
For me, like, experiences of racism and discrimination have happened not only to me, but also to people that have spoken to me about stuff, you know, like, so just like Daira mentioned. When I first came to Fort McMurray, I went to Canadian Tire, and there was some person there who did not understand my language. And she said, come back when you can speak English. But I was not the only one they said that to, because there was a lady who was from another part of India whose English was totally different from mine. And she went down to Service Canada, and somebody from there told her that we don't understand what you're saying. Come back when you understand how to speak good English. So this is a very common thing, you know, it's a very easy way to discriminate people when you don't understand what they're saying. But I think the way to deal with that is just ask them one more time to speak slowly and to be open to hearing the different accents and understanding them, because the way an African speaks is so different from the way an Indian speaks, is so different from the way a South American speaks to a Filipino who speaks, and even a Newfoundlander. Right? When you hear a Newfoundlander for the first time, you don't realize that they're speaking Canadian English.
Yeah. My friend Mary's Newfoundlander, and then seemed like, oh my gosh, I can understand what he's talking about. Seemed like I don't know how to speak English. I don't know how to understand English. That's why I keep on saying what, and then what.
I think also the other thing, like, you know, for example, right now we're going through a slump in our resource. We're having a crunch, and people are losing jobs, and there's so much of pressure on our economy. So when things like that happen, there's a greater tendency to discriminate against people who have come from elsewhere, and to say that this is my country and these resources are mine and I deserve more of it than you guys do. And so, you know, this is very common. We've seen it in so many countries around the world: Germany, UK, Australia. We've seen it happening. In Canada, somehow, because of our multiculturalism policy, people are more inclusive. I find Fort McMurray to be a very, very inclusive community, and I'm really glad to be here. We'll take a short break on Meet the World in Wood Buffalo. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back to Meet the World in Wood Buffalo. We were talking about racism and discrimination, and now we're going to talk about how kids can get discriminated against in their schools, and what are we going to do in those situations. So like actually when I just came to Fort McMurray, my daughter was 7 years old. She was in grade 3, and I'm sure the teachers did not have any cultural sensitivity training at that point. So the teacher whom Olivia had, she obviously didn't have a clue. So she didn't feel part of the group. The girls completely kept her out of everything, and she felt very alone, just like you said, you know. And just imagine, for a child of 7, how difficult that is. It just went right up to her heart, and she said, I don't feel part of this school, nobody likes me, I don't want to go to school. And every morning she started puking, she started throwing up and having lots of issues to go to school. And I didn't understand what was going on. It took me a while to realize that, you know, like, she just wasn't part of the group. Nobody wanted to make friends with her. They thought she was so different. Her English was so different. So I had to go to the school, talk to the teacher, and the teacher then actually asked the kids to take Olivia in their games and made her to be part of everything that was happening in class. But it was so hard. The first year was so hard for my daughter. Would you like to say something about some experiences that you've had?
I think for me, it's more based again from like the whole community aspect, and sometimes too, I would probably put the professional element in there, where we've had quite a few, you know, you'd have a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old who is refusing to go to school because, well, somebody's touching my hair all the time and telling me that, you know, or somebody came and looked at my skin and said that I was put in an oven for too long, and I was left baking for too long, and that's why my skin is this dark. And to find that children are saying things like that to each other on the playground and that young, it's a little bit disturbing. But children basically are modeled, like we model our behaviors, or we teach them what to do and how to be when it comes to being out in society. I think what I liked about what you said is that I think the school has a very big role to play in making sure that every child is included and there's no bullying happening and there's no discrimination happening. And the thing about discrimination is that regardless of whether you're looking at it in terms of schools and children, adults and work, we call it all different kinds of names because it becomes enmeshed. At school, it becomes bullying. So it's much more safer for us to look at it as bullying than to look at it beyond just the bullying part. When teachers come to a place where, I think I remember one experience of one family was that the teacher basically told one of the students to stop eating too much food, that this child was not in Africa anymore and was in Canada now and didn't need to eat too much food or hoard food. And that was the teacher's way of talking and responding or reacting to this child being a little bit overweight. And she said it in front of the peers, in front of the class. So that in of itself is harming to this child's self-esteem and everything else. So you end up having kids that do not want to go to school for one reason or the other, and you end up coming and it manifests itself in anxiety and depression and all those other things that if parents are not aware of what could be going on, they'll totally miss the back.
Like my son was walking on the road one day and he was about 12, I think. And so there was this bunch of white kids who were in a car and they just shouted out, "Hey, Blackie, what are you up to?" Just for fun. It was just fun, right? And my son says, how come they didn't recognize that I'm not a Blackie, I'm a brownie? So it was funny. And so the way a child looks at it, the perspective is so different from what I look at. I would have got upset and like, how did they do that to you? And why did they say that to you? And who were they? And, you know, try to dig it a little more. But kids can take it so easy. And did you have any experiences like this, Mildred, that you can speak about?
The boy I'm looking before with my work as a nanny, and then in his school, one morning, he don't like to wake up, and then told me, "I don't like to go to school." And why? Because nobody loves me in the school. Why? Why you say that nobody loves you in the school? Because nobody talk to me. And then maybe sometimes he spoke some language he didn't understand, and then people, his classmates, laugh at him. That's why he don't like to go to school. But talking to him that you have to go to school because you have learned something, you have friends in there, so he cope up it.
So was he able to cope? Did he get the confidence to move on?
As of now, because he is so hyper, he has so many friends as of now.
So I just want to say thank you to both of our panelists today for coming out and talking about a very intense topic. For our next show, we will bring on the abortional community to also talk about what happens with them and how they deal with it. Thank you very much for watching our show on racism and discrimination. Welcome again next time to Meet the World in Wood Buffalo. Thank you so much.